Hi, I'm Paige, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this dress. As I've been watching some of the spring and summer fashion shows of 2019, I've been noticing a lot of this style of dress. Something that's kind of reminiscent of flamenco dresses or peasant style dresses that have gathered tiers on the skirt and some kind of detail up at the top, whether it's a little ruffle or kind of a statement sleeve that's a little puffy or something with ruffles, something similar to these right here. So I took those dresses as inspiration and I made this. So I'm going to show you how to do that. In the description box below you can find a link to the worksheet that goes with this video that I created to help you determine your pattern pieces and the amount of fabric you need to buy. And it walks you through a lot of the process of determining the size of each piece of the dress. And then the only thing left to do is put it together. So let's get right into the tutorial and I'll show you how to do that. The first thing that you're going to do is cut out all of the panels of fabric that you need according to your measurements that are laid out on the worksheet. You're going to need 2 panels of the bodice and the sleeves, 3 panels for the tiers of the skirt, and a panel for the waistband tie. When you're cutting the curve of the bodice and the arm, you're going to make sure that the curve is the same amount of inches or centimeters. And the best way to do this is with a curved ruler, because you can match up the curve on both pieces. Now to begin sewing, you're going to do French seams on the sides of the bodice and the underarm seam. And I've also duplicated that with my lining as well. And here I'm inserting the lining of the bodice by putting the wrong sides of the lining and the main fabric towards each other. So seams will be touching each other. And I'm just roughly matching up the points of the top and the underarm before I begin pinning in the sleeve as well. Now I'm going to be doing French seams on the arm side as well. So that's why I'm putting the wrong sides together and sandwiching the bodice lining in there as well. And I'm starting by pinning at the armpit seams, and I am pinning upwards towards the top. So do that on both sides and complete the seams. And now we're going to create the casing that goes around the neckline by folding over a 1/2 inch and then folding again about 1.5 inches. So I used my ruler to make sure everything was exact. And once it was, I'm going to pin that in place and do the same steps around the entire neckline to create an even casing. Once I was done with that, I did my stitching, and here you can see I have a row of stitching on the bottom and one that's 1 inch away from the top. With that bottom stitching, I left an opening so that I can insert the elastic. So here I just put the elastic inside the casing with a safety pin to help guide it through. And I just went around and double checked that nothing got turned over or twisted. And in this case, I did have one twist, so I adjusted that and pinned it back together and tried it on to make sure it fit nicely. Then I closed up that opening where the elastic was and stitched the elastic together. And I began doing the sleeves in the same exact method, just with a little bit smaller of a ruffle, so I only folded over 1.25 inches. And here you can see I have the same effect of a light ruffle and a gather, and I will do that on the other side, and the bodice is constructed. So now I'm going to set that aside for later. Here I have 3 panels to create the tiered portion of the skirt, and each of these panels is just one long piece, so I'm only going to need to do 1 seam, and I'm going to do a French seam for a nice finish from the inside. So once you've done a French seam on all of these pieces, you'll have one continuous loop of a panel. and then you can baste the top of those panels to prepare for gathering. So I'm going to begin by working with my middle panel and attaching it to my bottom panel. The first thing I'm going to do is divide each piece into 4 sections and marking those with pins, kind of like north, east, south, and west, and I'm going to match those pins to each other. That way my gathers are evenly distributed amongst the whole entire circumference. So here I'm just matching up those points, and I'm going to begin to pull one of those threads in my gathers and just evenly distribute them. This part is a bit tedious, and I just pin every about 1.5 to 2 inches to make sure that everything stays exactly how I want it to be, and I stitch around the outside. For this, I decided to do stitching with my matching thread and then run it through my serger. So you can see the white is my serging thread and the green is the stitching. It created just a nice soft gather that I thought was very flowy and pretty. And then I'm going to take that basting side of the middle panel and mark my north, south, east, and west and match that up to my top tier. And then once that's done, then you will begin to do the same process, attaching the skirt to the bodice. And then from there, the dress is pretty much complete. All you have to do is just hem the very bottom, and that's very simple by just folding over 1/4 inch and folding it once more and just stitching it right along the edge. For my lining, I wanted it to come down a bit longer, so I decided to add a panel that was gathered, and that's simply done in the same process as adding the tiers. And then, last step is to create your waistband tie. I like when the tie has a pointed edge, so I cut a corner off, and I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And on both sides, you're going to begin stitching from the point, going towards the center, leaving an opening right in the middle. I just simply skipped over this section when I was doing the serger, and I'm going to turn this right side out on both sides. This part was so fun. And then I'll just fold over that little opening right there, make sure everything looks smooth and matched up nicely, and then just top stitch that closed. And there you go. All pieces are finished. Great job! The dress is finished now and it's ready to wear. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe and click the bell alert if you want to be notified anytime that I post a video. Until next time, go get creative and make a dress that you love. Bye.